Hello my crafty friends, Corrine here from Corrine Crafts. I hope you are well. Have you had some time in your craft room? I hope you've had a bit more time in your craft room than I have. I am literally in and out of here. The mess behind me is unbelievable. Something's got to give at the moment, and at the moment it's tidying my craft room. There is stuff everywhere. So we're just making cards with what we can find at the moment, and this is today's card. Isn't this so pretty? I am loving this. I just thought I want to have a go at making a flower. I haven't made a foam flower for ages. Perhaps you don't enjoy making flowers, but you enjoy making cards like this. So maybe use a pre-bought flower. It's entirely up to you. Maybe you don't have a flower that big, so use a little cluster of flowers. Or maybe you could make a flower out of paper. It's entirely up to you. I just want to show you how one flower can be such a pretty focal point of a card. So should we see how I made it? Let's get on with making the card then. So I just thought I would have a go with some foam, and this is a different brand of foam than I've used before. Can't remember where I got it from. It is a bit thicker than the foam I've normally used, so it's just taken me a little bit longer to work out how to get the best out of it, but I think I've done pretty well now. So I'm going to show you what I've done. So let's just move everything out of the way. Right, so I've got a card base 5 1/4 by 6 3/4 inches. So I've not cut anything off the length. It's 6 3/4 because it's a card that it was a card suitable for a 7-inch square envelope, and I've just cut 1.5 inches off the side. And then I'm going to go down to my topper, which is this one, which is 4 1/2 by 6. It's a size I really like. I really seem to like this size. And for anybody asking, I'm a bit lazy. I just get a 7-inch card envelope, the one that came with this, and I use that. It's got a little bit of a gap either side, but then that helps with the dimension. Now, actually, having said that, looking at the flower I'm going to put on here, I'd probably have to put this into some sort of a box, because it's going to have quite a lot more dimension. So yeah, change my mind. Yeah, so just make a regular box. And if the card base is 5 1/4 by 6 3/4, I'd probably make my box 5 1/2 inches by 7 inches, and that would give a little bit of room to get the card in and out. So that is what I would do with this. So let's move that out of the way. So you can see I've got 2 layers of white that are going to go like that, and I think I might stick those two together and put those on with foam. And then I've got 1 layer of card. Now the card, you know, I like to dig deep into my stash. My card today is from this pad. Now I have had this probably 10 years or even more. I bought it from the works years and years and years ago. It is absolutely gorgeous papers, and I've used one from near the, no I haven't, it's probably from around the back. Yeah, so from the mats and layers I've used, see if I can find it. Can't even find it now. Is it that one? No, I'm sure I just saw it. Ah, there you are. I've used this one. Now for the top, my top layer, I'm using a different one. I'm using one that is slightly textured, if I can find it, and you'll see it in a minute anyway when I get to use it. Oh, they're gorgeous papers, so thick. If I've got another one, it might be that one. So single-sided is this, but can you see it's got that shimmer on there because it's slightly embossed. So those are the papers I'm going to use. So this is just a paper, so it says they are 200 GSM. There you go. 3 of each of 16 designs. Got gorgeous paper on the back, but we're just going to use the top. So I'm going to grab my bookbinding glue. You could use either side if you wanted, but I want to use the polka dot side. I'm just going to put a little bit of bookbinding glue onto here. And then this can be setting. You know, I like to get the pressure put on those. And then we can do the next bit. So that's going to go onto my card base, just like that. And I've got about 1/4 inch on either side from there. So that is perfect. If you want to, just grab yourself a cloth and just give it a bit of a rub, making sure you're pushing all the glue. I'm pushing from the insides to the outside like that. And then, as always, I would grab my stamping platform. I'd grab something heavy, put the punch on top, and that's going to weigh it down. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to do the layer on top of here, and as I mentioned, I'm using this paper. Now what I have got my hands on recently is a Dutch doodaboo. It is the craft brand with no limits, it says, and it is like I'm going to put it on there so you can see. It's just like a rough, it's like a ruler, but it's not a straight edge. It's plastic. And all you need to do, now this is actually quite a hard one to do it on. I like to tear, if I tear from the top, and that's going to give me a white edge. And you just tear against the different shapes. Do with a bit more to grab hold of. And then it's going to give me a random cut straight, you know, random edge. So you can see I've done it that way so that I get the white on there. And then I'm going to turn the ruler around because I don't want it the full width and I don't want the other one. So if I put that like that, and then I'm going to tear it from above again. Oh, like I say, this one's quite a, I think because it's embossed, it's quite hard to do. But it doesn't have to be perfect, because that's the whole point. There we go. We'll do it like that. And that gives me my cut edge. I've got some lovely white torn edges, and I can put that onto my card. Now, I've got makeup on today, and I've just put makeup on my card, or at some point I have. Just my sticky stuff remover. There we go. That's going on there. So I'm just going to take my torn strip, and I'm going to pop it down there. Now, I've got a nice straight edge at one end, so I might as well make the most of that. Put some glue on the back. Need to go to about there. And then glue all the way down. So I'm not going to put it centre. I'm going to just off centre, but enough off centre that it looks right. And we can stick that down. Now you can do mats and layers on here if you want, but I think that looks really, really pretty just onto there. So then I can press that down, turn it over, grab my scissors up to the edge of the cardstock, and then just cut that like that. There we are, absolutely perfect. So I can take that now and I can pop that onto here. Now I didn't do the mats and layers before because if I'd have stuck it on, I wouldn't have been able to use my scissors up against the edge to cut. And I wanted to do that, so that was why I just waited a few minutes before I stuck the two together. And then we can put that on to there, and I've got a white on white border. Now you don't have to do that, you could go straight in with a colour if that was what you wanted. So let's put some foam tape on the back of there. I'm not doing too many layers, you know, sometimes I do lots of layers. For this I'm not doing too many at all. Foam tape, as always, sticks to. You can get that off their website. Foam tape on the back. I like to do vertical as my, if I'm only doing one layer of foam tape, it's always vertical. If I'm doing two, I'll do one in vertical and one in horizontal. Oh my goodness me, that was a good guess. Look at that, and that one. That was a pretty nifty guess when you're pulling that off. Press it down nice and firm. Grab your pokey tool and then just peel off the back. And as I always say, the firmer you press it down, the easier it'll be to peel off at the end. There we go. Now I always get a little bit of PVA. You can tell it's my PVA because it has a green band around. I just wanted to reuse a bottle because my PVA comes in a big bottle, which is bit unwieldy to use on a day-to-day basis. So when I've got an empty glue bottle, I just refilled it. So I'm going to take that, make sure I've got it the right way around because I want the strip on the left, and then I can put that on there. And you'll notice I've just got, sorry, I've got to feel my fingers. I've just gone slightly bigger with the border on that than I have on the white, but I think that looks just right to have that slightly bigger border. Okay, I'm going to put that back under my weight. Let's move that out of the way first before I put the weight on it, because I've learned my lesson the hard way that sometimes it slips. There we are, and that will do that. So now that means I can make my flower, which for me is the really exciting bit. Now I have got, as I said, this is foam. It's a little bit thicker than foam I've used before, but we always have a way to make it work. So the first time I did, I screwed it up and I was thinking this just doesn't feel right. Now I'm using some of my signature collection dies. I love these ones. This is the Golden Sunset. It's one that I go to all of the time. So you get this large one and then you get some smaller ones as well. Now I'm not going to use the smaller ones. My flower is going to have 4 layers and they're all going to be from the same size die, and that's just something that I personally like to do. And I've just managed to get this flower out of 2 strips of foam, so I can do this in my small die cutting machine. Just if I put it that way around, the foam's sticking out the side but it's soft, but you can see the die is within the 3-inch folder, which is what matters. Just go round. Now what I like about this die, and you'll see when it cuts, so I've gone through 2 layers. Even though it's a thicker foam than I'm used to, it's cut 2 layers without any hassle. It has also done some embossing, and it's embossed. I've never worked out why it embosses the top and it embosses the bottom. It doesn't emboss the inside, so when they're together it embosses that one and that one. I don't understand why it's not that side, but it isn't, so I can just turn it over. And I've got 2. If I just show you, if I bring it up, hopefully you can see. I'm hoping you can see that because I can't see on the setup I've got. But hopefully you can see it's got quite a lot of veining on there. Now what I have done is I have warmed up my craft iron. Now if you want to, you can just use a regular iron. You can also use what else can you use? You can use a heat gun. They all work perfectly well. So what I'm going to do before I use that, just move that out of the way 1 minute. I'm just going to get a mat, and I have got 4 layers because I've just cut 2 before. There we go. And I've got my spring meadow. So all I'm going to do, I'm only going to do this on 2 layers, the top 2. I've just got some on a little brush and I can link to these, and then I'm just going to go round the centre. Don't get over concerned about how it's doing. You can really see the veining coming out when I do that as well. And then do that. Now don't just do it in that little bit of centre. You need to come out a lot further than you think. I've been caught out so many times by how far out you need to come with your ink. There we go. It will look better. Even if you want a white flower, think of roses, you know, like your dog roses. Even though they're white, the intensity of the white in the centre will often look, you know, yellow or green. So yeah, that's how you do that. So all I'm going to do then is, I've got that there, you can see that. I'm going to take, it's always handy to have something like your poker tool, pop this up on there. Now if you watch it, you can see, can you see it's going softer? It's getting much more pliable because, like I say, it's a bit thicker. I can then twist the petals one on top of each other, pleat them up and twizzle. Now this, I think this is going to be really good for flower making, this foam, because it is a bit thicker, but that means that I'm not getting the same sort of detail on the end. So I just warm up the ends and then I can put that on here. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to turn the inking over onto the other side and I'm going to let that come away. Now remember, when you put heat on foam, it will shrink. I always used to do a guesstimate of about 10%. It's just a small amount. So when you're thinking about cutting out your dies, just think that if you're going to use a direct heat, like I'm doing, the foam is going to shrink. So just remember, you know, maybe go up a size of your die because you're going to get that shrinkage. Just using my poker tool to hold it there, let that get nice and warm. And can you see how it just comes away? And can you see how it started to curl up? And these have started to curl up already, which is why I put the ink towards the heat source, because I want that to be the top. And then I just twizzle and when it's ready, I'm just going to put it back on the heat, and I'm just going to really twizzle it. And then my final one, 3 or 4 layers, it's entirely up to you. And you can see, look at that. It's really not taking long at all. Now these are 5 petals, so even though they're an odd number, it's still quite easy to work with them. And give it a twizzle and soften those ends and just do it. Now I did find that, again, with this being a little bit thicker foam, it just turn my iron off, it allowed me to reshape really easily. So I've got all 4 like that, and I'm just going to come in now with my pink tulip. Now normally I'd use my dauber, but I thought I'd give it a go with a blending brush and pick up some ink, and I'm just going to go over the ends. I didn't want to do this while it was open, because all I wanted to do is just colour the ends up, just to give it that hint of pink rather than that intense pink colour. Just like that. And then the next one. Now I am colouring the pink on all of them, not just the ones that are coloured with the green centres, because you'll see this. Whereas the centres, you only really see the centre of the top one and a hint of maybe on the next one. I think that'll do, because I just want a hint of pink, as I said. So that out of the way. So now I can open these up. And they look a little bit screwed up. So what I'm going to do, not touching that bit, I'm just going to stretch them a little bit like this. Now the heat of your hands is enough to do it. Now people sort of say, how do I know how hard to stretch it? You learn, you can feel it. I've ripped so many petals. All I've done when I've done that is I've just hot glued the petal back together, and it just looks really realistic, because in nature you find flaws in petals and things, don't you? So I don't think it comes to any harm at all if you have to glue a petal back on, or you know, or you could have a gap or what have you. Really easy to do. So you can see I'm not overly concerned about these. Just stretch them out as much as you want. I'm just bringing it, and you'll see I'm doing it down at the base of the petal, and I'm not touching the top. Now if the top gets a bit flattened like that, I can always put it back on my heat source, or I can just give each one an individual roll. Now can you see I've got that lovely hint of pink on the ends, and that's all I want. So I'm going to grab a foam mat. I'm going to swap out my craft mat for a foam mat, and then all I'm going to do is, I've got a glue gun, and let's put these onto here. I can feel these sort of firming up with the type of foam it is, and I'm going to just open it out and put a blob of glue in the centre like that, and then pop it on, just pressing slightly. Another blob of glue. You really, can you see, it's, you don't want too much glue, otherwise your flower is going to be all bulky from the glue. And I'm not doing too much about shaping at the moment. Blob of glue, and then put the next one on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a ball tool, and I'm just going to press my ball tool into the centre, just like that. And I'm just going to ruffle up. Whilst that glue is setting and going firm, I can shape round there. I'm just going to come in with a slightly smaller one and just add a little bit more dimension. Just letting that glue hold it up, and then we've got our flower. Really, really easy. Pokey tool straight down the middle, and because we've flattened that glue, it'll go straight through. Oops. There we go. So I've got a nice little hole in the middle, and then I'm going to get some stamens, and I've got a piece of floristry wire. So let me grab a handful of stamens. I don't use a set number, I just use whatever ends up in my hands, but it needs to be a few. It needs to be a few. But it also needs to be able to go through that hole. I've learnt the hard way. Now you could put a bigger hole in. I could use my crocodile. It's entirely up to you. So grab your stamens, straighten them all up a bit. They don't have to be perfectly straight because it'll look quite good, but they need to be roughly the same height. Right, that one's not quite right. There we go. And then all I'm going to do, floristry wire, twist the floristry wire around the centre and then pull it through. So I've got double the amount of stamens because I've folded them in half. And then I'm going to go through the centre like that. Now I've got quite tight amount of stamens, so I'm going to get my pokey tool. I'm going to do a twizzle, and then I'm going to use the pokey tool to pull it through. I find that's quite hard on your hands, and then pull that through. So I'm not going to pull them too far, and if they go too far, I can just pull it back, and then take your wire out. I can get my glue gun, and then I can just put a blob of glue. Oh, my glue gun turned itself off because it's a cordless one. Just round there. There we go. That's all I need to do, and then leave that to dry. And when that's dry, this is what you get. So I've got a nice little solid bit of glue at the back. So all I then need to do is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to cut it off level with that glue. So the glue is going to hold those stamens in, and I have got a beautiful flower. Isn't that gorgeous? I love making flowers, and anybody that's followed me for a while will know about my love of flower making. And as I said, this is a slightly thicker foam, so it's actually holding its shape really, really well. And that is going to go onto our card. Now I promise you, we've done the majority of the work for our card already. I just see a little piece of waste paper. There we go. And that's going to go onto my card like that. So I've been in my scrap box and I've been cutting a few out. Now this is another one of my signature dies. I love this one as well, but you can use any foliage that you like. It says signature die there. I love these white ones. A little bit of brickwork, that's from a previous project. I've got another one of those white. Now these are from Jamie's collection, Jamie Rogers. These are entwined vines, I think is the right name. I cut some out for a previous project, so I might use a few of those now. I've got a couple more of those. What else have I done? Oh, I have cut this. I don't know how much of this I'm going to use. I've just cut some of this honeycomb little bit there. That looks quite nice. I've got all of those I can use in a shaker card. And then found that in my box, but I don't think I'm going to use that. I'm going to put that back. Oh, I don't want that one either. Now these I cut out of a scrap of that card look. I just thought I would do a little bit of colour. Now I'm not going to be using all of these by any means. And I've got that one. I might actually just quickly show you. This is all I did, was I got a little strip of that. I put the die on like that, and let's cut this waste off because it'll make it easier. Put it in my mini. Now all I do when I finish with these, all of those that don't get used, because some of them have come out to there, all I will do is put them back in my spare box, which is on my windowsill right in front of me, and they will come out for another project. Nothing is wasted. It just means that when I come to do these projects, it's a lot quicker because everything is, a lot of stuff is pre-cut. There we go. So just went through my stuff. Now this is a foliage collection that I really like. Look at that. Love it. You never have enough leaves. You always want something a little bit different, don't you? And look at these. It makes them sort of skeletal leaves. You know, you've got all the bits to poke out. There we go. I love these. So again, I'm not going to necessarily use all of these. I'm just might use some of these, but I think they are really nice. Which other ones do I like? How about this one? I'll take them all out eventually, but just thought this was quite a nice way to do it. Yeah. Right, we're going to leave it at that for now because I've got that one as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is put these on. Now I'm just going to get some 3D glue. Well, I am so glad I filmed these in such a way that I'm able to edit them after the event, because I've just spent 5 minutes trying to unblock 3D glue. So don't think when you see these that I don't get blockages in my glue, because I certainly do. Right, so now we have my 3D glue. I'm going to cut this in such a way that I can put that one. I could have cut the end, but I like the ends. I'm going to put that on here like that, so it comes out each side. I've also just tied a knot in some green string, so I can put that on as well. Let's put that on there. Let's put a little blob of glue, and then everything will start pinning down. So just some green twine. Then I'm going to, I think I'll do the flower next. Now, because I've got that knot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on, and I'm just going to pop it below the knot. Otherwise it would be too sticky up. So you can see the green coming out. I'm going to get a couple of my vines rather. I'm going to put one on there. Do I need another one? Do I want it down this side, or do I want it up that side? I might try it on that side. But if it doesn't look right, I can take it out because it's 3D glue. Looks lovely against the that border, doesn't it? Now remember, whenever you're using 3D glue, you have to give it plenty of time to dry. So we can then pop another one in there. I'm going to put one of these. Let's put a little bit of glue on that, on the bottom. So that can come quite a way out. And then I'm just going to poke in these little bits as well, just so that they stand out. Just give a little bit of a colour definition. I've got 3D glue everywhere. I feel so sticky. I need to get this sorted in a minute. I'm sticky. My tweezers are sticky. There we go. Let's go underneath that way. I wonder why that vine, it wants to go underneath. It lies a bit flatter. There we are. I don't want it symmetrical, because if it's too symmetrical, it's not going to look right. And then, do I want these ones? Do I want these one? Put a little bit of glue on top of the white so that it stands out. That looks nice, doesn't it? And then we can do this one as well. There we go. And pop that on there. Isn't that really, really pretty? Just want to go up a little bit with it. There we are. Right. Now, I just used from my Hunky Dory sentiments. Just got one like that. And I'm just going to put it down there. Again, you could be doing foam pad, which might be easier because this is all stickiness. I could have put it coming out of there, but I think I'm just going to pop it going across, bridging that gap. And that is it. Oh, is it? I'm just going to get some water crystals. I'm just going to get a couple of water crystals and put those on. Just decided, I took one look at it and thought it just needs something. Oh, what did that go? To give it a bit of a lift. Turn that one over. Try and make sure they're not in a line. And then a third one can just come there. There we go. Yep, that's just gives it that finishing touch. That's all it needed. And there you go. There is my foam flower focal point of my project with lots of white going on around it. Now I can see a little bit of glue on there. It will dry, but I don't like to see the glue. So there we are. Doesn't that look stunning? Very little colour on this card, but for me, that really, really works. There you go. Just wanted to make that because I hadn't made a flower for a while, and I just thought, let's make a flower. So there we go. And this is, yeah, I hope it's inspired you to get some of that foam out and have a go and get some of it used. As always, there'll be a link to another project on the left and a link to my subscribe button on the right. And if you're able to click those, that would be fantastic. And down in the description will be the links to my things I've used on Amazon and also my Buy Me a Coffee page. And anything you're able to do to support my channel is really, really appreciated. Okay, then, my friends, I will leave you there, and please let me know if this has inspired you to get your foam out, or whether you prefer to make paper flowers, or even if you prefer to do projects like this with pre-bought flowers. But for me, it's the size of the flower in relation to the card that makes this so wow. Okay, you take care, my friends. Don't forget to leave me any comments and any pictures of what you've made, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye for now.